Hey friends, my name is Eric and I'm going to show you how I made this weird egg glowy light thing. So I kicked it off by making a base, which is simply made out of poplar. The original intention for this base was for it to be a prototype, but I really liked the shape of the base and how it interacted with the egg in the end, and I decided that I kind of wanted a black base to highlight the egg. So I ended up keeping this form, but it's very, very simple. It's just a dish with a little tenon coming out of the center that I could sit the egg into, and that tenon also acts for a seat for the LED light. As you can see here, it fits perfectly. So once the turning was done, I needed to hide the wire, and the simplest way to do that was to create a trough for the wire to run in and then a cap to hide the wire itself. Now, I chose to do this with hand tools, one, because I like working with hand tools when I can, and two, because, let's be real, it makes for good content. But in order to do this with hand tools, it's a very simple process, and it's very similar to how you would do it with an electric router. Essentially, I just knifed around the outside of the panel that was going to be inset as though it was a standard inlay, chiseled away the corners, and then grabbed my router plane and just routed down to depth. Like, it's really that simple. Cleaned up the corners with a chisel, made sure everything fit tightly, and then it's just a pressure fit. And I know folks were having a conniption on the internet about the grain direction. It's gonna be painted, guys. You're never gonna see it. I promise you'll never know. Don't worry about it. After that, I started laying out the egg itself. Now, it took me several attempts to figure out what I wanted to do. I wasn't really sure where I wanted the egg to go visually, but I knew that I wanted to have some kind of movement, some kind of circular movement from bottom to top. And I just started drawing out some lines. I laid out a grid pattern so that it was consistent, and then looked at some dragonfly wings and kind of used them as a rough guide for what I wanted the cutouts to actually look like. One thing I did learn is not to use permanent marker on the egg itself, because getting that out of the pores was a nightmare. I gave it a bath in chlorine for 24 hours to remove the membrane, and also hoping that it would remove the markers, but they did stay in the pores, and I actually ended up having to grind away the surface of the egg where I had left the marker in order to remove those dark spots. Ultimately, it ended up making a really cool texture, so I wasn't upset about it, but it was just another pain in the butt. Then I went ahead and covered the entire egg in Total Boat's penetrating epoxy. Whether or not this step was necessary, I don't know, but the reason that I did it, eggs are a porous material, and so my hope was that it would seep into the pores and stabilize the egg and make it kind of rock hard. I'm not going to test this by dropping it off a building, so I don't know really how rock hard it is, but I have to imagine it did something. And if nothing else, it actually ended up being a happy accident that the runoff from the epoxy created a little flange or a flat on the bottom of the egg, which created a really nice glue surface later on. Then I went ahead and used some quickset epoxy to put this down on the base, and you can see the flange on the bottom of that egg that I was mentioning a moment ago. And then it's just lighted up. And I really, really dig the way that the texture on the outside of this egg ended up coming to be. I used milk paint on the outside to, again, emphasize that motion, those lines as they grow up around the outside of the egg. And I just think it's a super, super cool texture, both when it's lit and when it's unlit. It ends up giving a really nice both visual and tactile texture to the egg. So there you go. It's as simple as that. It really was not a complicated project. I mean, it's a super, super cool project, and it can look intimidating, I think, because who knows how to carve an egg? I certainly didn't, but it really, really was simple once you got the hang of it. Once I made one or two cuts, I kind of got the feel for what it was going to be, and then it moved pretty quickly. And the base and the light were super, super easy. And I want to give a big thanks to Sabertooth for sponsoring this project. You saw me use their burrs on this egg. You've seen me use their burrs in the past on a myriad of other things. And they're always so supportive of the ridiculous ideas that I bring to them. So if you want to pick yourself up some quality tools from Sabertooth, you can use my code Curtis10 at checkout, get 10% off anything on the website, and then go make yourself something pretty. So friends, Until the next inane idea comes about, be good making decisions as always.